and welcome to The Extra Mile. I'm Linda BOUDREAUX. Our guest today is Glen Armentor. Glen is probably best known as an attorney here in town, but I think he's becoming more and more known as the founder and creator of the Pay It Forward Scholarship Program, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Glen, welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, Linda. Thank you.
I am delighted that you came, and you're talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is helping at-risk kids, right?
It's a wonderful thing, and it is my best work.
I believe that.
I think I'm a good lawyer, but helping at-risk kids has been my best work.
You know, that's the heart work that we all do, the thing that changes the world. I think people have heard about the program, but just very briefly, what is it? What are you doing with this?
The Pay It Forward Scholarship is, Linda, a $10,000 scholarship to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. The area that it encompasses is Acadiana, the 7 parishes of Acadiana. Anyone who lives in that area and wants to go to college can apply for the scholarship. The scholarship is administered by the UL Foundation, who takes the $10,000 and pays the tuition of the winning student, and that opens them up to other scholarship opportunities when they become a matriculating student working toward a degree. It opens them up to TOPS, it opens them up to Pell Grants and transportation scholarships, book scholarships, housing scholarships, so that this $10,000 over 4 years turns into $35,000 to $75,000.
Wow.
So each scholarship can take an at-risk kid through college for 4 years.
Why do you do this?
Well, you know, I was probably the worst juvenile delinquent in the history of Lafayette Parish, and multiple arrests, a lot of problems. And frankly, I got saved by 3 mentors, 3 men who didn't know each other at different times, a police officer, a lawyer, and a professor. And each of them was a big brother to me, tried to teach me that I was really doing stupid stuff.
And you were.
And I was. There's no question I was doing really stupid things. And to make a long story short, my mentors saved me, convinced me that the reason I was acting so silly was because I was so ashamed of my poverty, and convinced me that the way out of poverty was a college education. And so I ended up, through their efforts, getting into college, and then getting into law school, and working hard, becoming a lawyer, and I think a good lawyer, and building a firm. And this is my effort to repay those individuals. They don't need repayment. Their words to me was pay it forward to others like yourself. And make sure that when you do, you tell those young people that one day they'll have to pay it forward too.
And that's how we change the world. Do you agree with that?
One kid at a time.
One kid at a time.
Right, that's right.
So who are you targeting in this program, Glen?
Well, you know, it's amazing how many at-risk kids. There are probably more at-risk kids now, Linda, than there have ever been in history. And I find that there are just as many at-risk kids at St. Thomas More as there are at Northside. You know, you might have a poor family and they're at risk because they're so poor they can't go to school. But there are a lot of rich kids out there that have problems with drugs, that have parents that are have addicted behavior or abusive behavior. There are a lot of ways that children can be at risk, and that it compromise their lives in a lot of different ways. So we look for at-risk high school juniors and seniors that probably can't go to college for one reason or another from their risk. And we target those individuals and see if we can help them to go to college. There is a selection committee, of which I'm not a voting member. I sit in the back of the room and I watch, but the selection committee is 12 educators that are world-class educators that look at about, well, several hundred applications, narrow it down to a final 15, interview those 15, and this year we're going to award 4 more of the scholarships. We awarded 4 last year, 2 the year before, and 1 the year before that. So this is the 4th year, and we'll have 11 kids at the end of this round, and I'm happy to say that they're doing well in college. And
so you must have some graduating, right?
No, as a matter of fact, we've got a junior at this point, some sophomores and some freshmen, and there'll be a senior next year after this this new class goes in.
Oh, aren't you proud of them, though? I mean, don't you feel like...
I watch what they do, I monitor their grade point averages, and I'm staying in the game. They're kind of like my kids.
Do you get to meet them?
Oh, sure. So, I meet them at the selection committee. I give them a call, and I tell them that they won the scholarship. And I follow them after that, spend a lot of time with them, and I sit and do what my mentors told me, and that's to mentor them as much as I can, give them advice when they need it, and let them know that someday it'll be their obligation to pay it forward to an at-risk child that is deserving as they were and that is very talented as they are, so that they can also save those kids in the future and change the world one kid at a time, as you said.
And I think what you said earlier about some of these kids are really bright, you know, and really high energy. They're just lost.
You know, Linda, we talked about this a little earlier. I call it the turn. if you take a brilliant kid who has the ability to be a 4.0 student in college, but he's on the street, he's going to hurt a lot of people. If he crosses the line.
And he's in a lot of pain.
In a lot of pain, making a lot of mistakes, doesn't know any better, he's 16, 17, 18 years old. If that young person crosses the line of irretrievability, he'll end up in prison. And he's so smart, he'll hurt hundreds of people. If you can turn that child around, if you can reach out to him and get him to understand that college is his way out, and he goes to college and he graduates from college, that smart kid becomes a 4.0 and an unstoppable citizen.
What if he got kicked out of school, you know, because of his behavior, not because of his intellect? Can he get a GED and still qualify for this program?
He can.
Because I know a lot of really smart kids do not do well in our public schools.
It's a little tougher, but he can qualify, yes, as long as he's got the GED. There are grade point average requirements and ACT score requirements for this scholarship, which is just commonsensical. You want to have somebody that is a good candidate for college.
Yeah, they have to be able to successfully navigate college.
At the same time, you have to understand that none of us ought to give up on an at-risk kid. If he's truly an at-risk child, an at-risk student, an at-risk young person, then he's going to make mistakes and he's going to screw up some.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is you just can't give up on that kid. He could be the real winner of the ages.
And we were saying that before we started today too, that one of the messages of today's show is don't give up on kids. I mean, yeah, they're going to make lots of mistakes. They're kids, you know.
You know, Linda, there were plenty of people that gave up on me.
But there were 3 that did not.
There were 3 that didn't. And I came from a very good family. I don't want to give the wrong impression. My parents were hardworking people. They raised us right. But we were very poor.
But and you were a tough kid to raise because you wanted more.
Well, I was very ambitious. That poverty changed me into somebody who was very ambitious. And my ambitions at first took me in the wrong direction and got me into a world of trouble. The ambition, once my mentors had straightened me out, made me a very good college student, made me a very good law student, made me a very good lawyer. And so it's the same ambition. You know, an at-risk kid, especially one that comes from poverty, has huge ambitions to do well.
They have big dreams.
They have big dreams, and they've got no contradictions and no distractions. They don't have any money. They can't go on vacation.
No fast cars for them.
Right. So it becomes a workaholic kind of situation where that incredibly ambitious young person just wants to do well, make some money, be like everybody else, own some things. And when they get there, then they start to accelerate and do much better, and money becomes a non-issue very quickly. And then the idea is success, and when success is a non-issue, then the idea becomes giving back.
Okay, so it's really a process or an evolution for each of us.
I think it is.
I think. What about girls? We're talking about him, and boys. Are girls part of this?
Well,
mix?
as a matter of fact, half the kids we've selected have been girls.
Just want to make sure.
They're at risk just like kids are.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about he, basically, since I'm a boy,
right,
and since I was a bad boy, I look at that as part of the at-risk focus. But there are a lot of risks for young female students as well. And our selection committee selects the brightest, the most competent, the most capable, and the most promising of the kids, whether they're female or male.
It must be a great feeling for a kid to be selected, huh? That alone must be such an ego boost that it takes them a year to come down.
They scream when I'm the one who calls to tell them.
Well,
and they scream with happiness, and they run to their parents to tell them. And yes, it is an incredibly satisfying thing. And it's beautiful to watch.
So as you mentor these young people, I mean, and it's going to grow, you know, every year. Do you follow them as they go on and on? I mean,
well, my hope is to follow them all their lives.
That was really the question I was trying not to ask, but that's where I was going. So,
I hope they're going to be like my kids.
You're making a lifelong commitment, really.
Oh, no question, it'll be a lifelong thing.
That means a lot to a person. I mean, let's face it.
It's very, and it's, you know, I mentioned this to you earlier. I'm a very good lawyer, but this is absolutely the best work I've done. It's the most fun. It's the most rewarding, and in the end, it'll have the most impact.
It will. It will change the world.
It
really will, because each person that is better creates a better world.
And for those of your listeners, I'd urge them to go to our website, which is GlenArmentor.com, and go to the poverty potential. I forgot what that splash page is at the bottom, and you'll see this this DVD, and take a look at it. It talks about what a terrible person I was and how I got saved. It talks about the kids who have won so far, and then there is a set of UL people, including T.J. Savoy, the president of the university, talking about the scholarship and what a good scholarship it is, and how it's saving kids. So it's a worthwhile see. And I'd urge you to do that. I'm also in the process of sharing the templates and the forms and the ideas of the paid forward scholarship with other lawyers, other plaintiffs' lawyers like me, all over Louisiana. We've got somebody in Shreveport, somebody in Monroe, somebody in Baton Rouge, all the towns that have universities that are looking at implementing their own scholarships now. So instead of doing 4 or 6 or 8 in Lafayette every year, we'll be able to do 40 or 60 or 80 all across Louisiana.
So this could be something that trial lawyers could take on, and
well, the trial lawyers will take it on.
Okay.
It's going to be something that we do, and that's because, Linda, there's somebody like me in every town, some at-risk young person who got mentored in the right way, got into school, did well, and is looking for an opportunity to pay it back.
And I don't know if people realize all the time how important it is, once you've achieved some level of success, to find a meaningful way to give back.
Well, most people get to that end at some point, I think. And I knew I wanted to do this in my late 20s, but I was building my empire, and it took me a while. But from the time I was about 55 on, I've been working on this, and it's been a project of mine that I do some on every day. And it's taking a little bit more of my time as time goes by, and it'll take more as I get a little older. And in retirement, this is going to be my job.
I was going to say, this could become a full-time job very easily.
Well, it's getting there now, and I think it will become a full-time job.
I think so too. Now, you were saying earlier, and we didn't go into really the details, but just in terms of the dollar value, this is a $10,000 scholarship. Is it an annual $10,000, or it's a one-time $10,000?
It's a one-time, but what happens is the UL Foundation administers it and uses it to pay tuition. Once a student pays their tuition, they are a matriculating student. That opens them up to a world of scholarships.
Okay.
The UL Foundation urges them to apply for certain scholarships. They invariably get TOPS, Pell Grants, housing and transportation, book scholarships. And that $10,000 will equate, depending on their grade point average and their ACT scores, that $10,000 will equate to about $35,000 to about $80,000 over 4 years.
Wow.
If somebody has great, very high ACT scores and a 4.0 every semester, then it becomes over $80,000.
That's a top dollar. That's a top dollar scholarship.
It's the second most serious monetary scholarship at UL, and we're doing more of them for UL. So it's.
Did you know this when you picked your dollar amount and figured out how you were going to do it? Did you know the potential for it to kind of turn into something much larger? Did you
As a matter of
research
fact,
it?
I did know that.
Okay.
I went to the UL Foundation and I talked to a lady named Adele Bouillon, who is the scholarship guru there, and she's a great lady, and Julie Falgu, who runs the foundation. And they taught me what 10,000 could do, and they suggested that amount. And so we used it because it's enough to get a child through 4 years of college. Most people would think 10,000 is not enough.
I didn't think it was.
The way this is structured, it'll get them through all 4 years.
So what if they drop out?
Well, then the rest of the money goes into a kitty that is used for the other students and or the new students that we're selecting as time goes by.
And again,
hopefully the selection committee will be good enough to make sure that we get 4.0s and nobody drops out.
But again, even if they do, let's face it, because sometimes they make mistakes. We don't have to give up on those kids either. Let's say they have a bad semester. Let's say something happens.
We never want to give up, and if they wanted to get back into it, we would do everything we could.
That was really where I was going with this question, because again, we don't all grow up at the same time.
Well, that's true.
Some of them take a little longer, a little more raising.
One of the other things I'm very proud of, Linda, is when we have these hundreds of applications that are winnowed down to about 15 finalists that are interviewed by the selection committee. 4 win, but that means 11 lose. Wow. Of those 11, they're so impressive, they're so absolutely gifted, and they're all at risk, that the people on the selection committee historically in the past have found ways to get them scholarships. Not pay it forward, but other scholarships. So most of them have ended up getting into college anyway. And that's a pretty warm feeling.
Huge.
Too.
That's
it
huge.
really is.
So you're getting 15 in, not 4.
Well, it isn't 15 every time, but 9, 10, 11,
sometimes,
as opposed to just 4. And of course, this pay it forward gets 4 of them for sure. But the idea was somebody had to lose, and it's a shame. And some of these kids are just almost as gifted and almost as promising as the ones that are selected, and you don't want to send them back with nothing. And so the scholarship selection committee has been finding ways to help those.
And that's been one of the points that you've been making in talking to me all along, is the importance of not leaving any kids out and not abandoning a child. But some are going to go way far just because that's where they're going to go. But the rest of them have a right, I think, to have a chance. And just some adult mentoring them, taking an interest in them, giving them an attaboy, attagirl. Sometimes that alone can turn them around, don't you think?
It's absolutely true. I am living proof that the care and consideration of a few kind people can make a wondrous difference in the quality of the lives of tens of thousands of people. And so reaching out is something that is absolutely necessary. We've got great kids out there that just need a little bit of help to springboard them into success. Otherwise, they will cost us tremendously.
They are part of our community, one way or the other. They will either be our leaders in the private sector and in the community, or they'll be our leaders in jail. But they're going to be leaders somewhere.
Some of these kids are world-class leaders.
They
and
are.
Some for the bad and some for the good, and you've got to save them.
It just depends on which way they go. How, you talked about just applying, but now specifically, if someone knew of a kid, 15, 16 years old, getting ready to graduate, what do they need to do to get them hooked up? Well,
first of all of the counselors at all the high schools have the DVDs and the brochures. Most counselors in the area churches have them as well. But if someone knows of a family with a really promising child, they can call my law firm at area code 337-233-1471, ask for the scholarship department, and my paralegal, Wayne Lemoyne, will send them a copy of the DVD and a copy of the brochure, which has an application attached to it.
Okay.
Then they simply fill out the application.
And it's not hard. It's not a hard application.
It's a UL form application, and it's actually just very, very simple. It's a 2-page application. Send it back to us. We will forward it to the university's foundation, and then they'll put it into the files with all of the applications, and those are the ones that are called for the 15 finalists.
Okay, and what's the cutoff date?
March 1st is going to be, March 1st of next year is the cutoff date for the 4th year of scholarships.
So Glenn, how long are you going to keep this up?
Probably about as long as I live.
So you don't see any end to this particular?
No, I think we're going to grow this as time goes by. I had hoped to do 6 this year. We're probably not going to get there. It's basically how well the firm does in terms of our profit, and we've got enough to do 4 again. Hopefully we'll do 6. My goal is to get to 8 every year, and I think we'll get there. But again, I also want to expand it to all the other university towns in Louisiana, and I really think we're going to have the scholarship up and running in at least 6 or 7 other towns within a couple of years.
That means everything.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch that happen.
Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all the adults that I know that really could do things for kids, that could reach out. I mean, not everybody can do a scholarship fund, but everyone could do a little something, don't you think?
Well, paying it forward is a great slogan, and the bottom line is, if somebody does something for you, you should follow the golden rule and do something for someone else. Either the person who helps you, but more
often the person who helps you doesn't need your help.
More worthwhile, probably someone just like you that they saw a need in and helped, so that you can see a need in someone else and help them. It just takes a little bit of want and a little bit of effort and a little bit of a handout to change the life of a young person and turn them into something so much better.
And I guess another thing I would like people to take away from today's show, aside from the fact that this is a wonderful opportunity for at-risk youth, is that I think you're right, all of us have an obligation to do something. And maybe we just need to spend a little time and look within ourselves and think about, what is it that I can do? How can I help a kid, or whatever my particular passion is? How can I change the world?
You know, Linda, there are a lot of demographics that need help. There are a lot of elderly people that need help. There are many institutions that are failing today. It's just a tough time in the world.
Yeah, it is.
Tough time in America. Probably the most attractive demographic of all is children at risk, because they're so innocent, they're so talented, they're so promising at that age. And
they have so many years to contribute. There's a big bang for your buck.
So a lot of people gravitate to trying to help kids. My thing is helping them with a college degree, because that's what made all the difference in my life. But there are all kinds of ways to help people, and whether it's children or the elderly or other people in need or the sick and the injured. You know, my whole life has been about helping people that get injured in terrible accidents, and that's been very gratifying to me. It really has. But helping kids is just as gratifying, maybe more so.
So how did you kind of drift into the type of law that you practice? I mean, was that just what resonated most for you?
Well, one of my mentors was a lawyer, and he did plaintiff's personal injury practice, and I watched him, the way he was able to help families that were blue-collar, working-class people living from check to check, where the dad would get hurt offshore and they'd lose everything. And this lawyer was helping dozens of families and really helping them and making a difference in their lives and turning their cases around, turning their lives around, saving them from bad people who wanted to take advantage of them, trying cases for them and winning cases for them, and setting them back up onto a life that was promising for their families. And I liked it a lot, and I decided I'd go to law school and do that kind of law, and that's what I've done.
And it's worked well for you and for our community.
It's done well. I've been very happy with that kind of work. It's been very, very satisfying.
And do you plan to continue to practice law for like a long time too, or are you just starting to move your time around a little bit more towards
Well,
the
in order to
foundation?
fund the scholarship, I've got to practice law.
So you really never can retire.
I don't intend to retire.
Never gonna
I would do what I do as a lawyer for free, to tell you the truth.
You like it that much?
I like it that much. But as long as we do well, we can fund more scholarships.
But isn't it just wonderful to like everything you do in your life? I
I'm
mean,
the luckiest
like a
guy.
gift? Isn't that like a big, big gift? So just kind of to go back and recap, in terms of the children that we're after, they need to be teenagers.
Need to be juniors or seniors in high school. They need to have the acumen to go to college. They need to be able to do a good ACT score. They need to have a 2.5 grade point average in high school.
Okay.
And they need to be anxious to go to college, because that selection committee is very hard to fool. I mean, they're going to select smart kids that are very ambitious, that really want to go to college, that are truly at risk, either because they're too poor to go to college, or because they're in a home where the family or parents have addictive habits with drugs or alcohol or abuse. There are many, many forms of at-risk kids.
So, but when you talk, because we work at the Extra Mile with at-risk kids, when you're talking about at-risk kids for you, you mean those children who, for whatever reason, just won't be able to go to college? Or are you talking about those kids who are likely to go to jail or get pregnant and just, drop out of society?
Well, they're at-risk kids from the time they're born to the time that they're 100 years old. My focus is on high school juniors and seniors at age 16 and 17, because I think that's the fulcrum of whether they're going to go bad or go good. Okay. That line of irretrievability happens when kids are 17. And if we stop them with a college education or a promise of a college education through the scholarships, and we turn them into college students, then we save them.
So for you, the at-risk kid is a kid that will not have a successful life.
Well, and has partially because they cannot go to college.
Because they cannot go to college. So they have to have that
With poor families, they can't afford it.
Right.
With abusive parents, they'll never get the chance. Yeah. With parents with addictive problems with alcohol and drugs, they'll never get the chance. Okay, so we're looking for kids that just have no chance to go to college, but are smart, ought to go to college, and will do well.
And we as a society need them to go to college. I think that's also fair to say.
It's amazing what these kids do when they get to college and get out of college. They become literally unstoppable. They're ambitious, they're smart, they know the street, they know college, they know life, and they become instant successes. And if they work as hard as I did, and most of them do,
they will.
They rise very rapidly and do wondrous things.
So there's a lot to be said, a lot of hope for our future with the Pay It Forward scholarship.
The Pay It Forward scholarship is very healthy. I think it'll last for many, many years, hopefully for some decades. Okay. And we're going to hear that. We're going to be in the process of expanding it, not only in Lafayette, where we do it as a firm, but in all of the college towns in the state of Louisiana, where other plaintiffs' lawyers like me intend to do the same thing.
So we have a lot to look forward to.
I hope we do this show every year so that I can tell you how good it is and how it's expanding.
And one year I'd like to bring one of our graduates,
Well, there are seven now. Whenever you're ready, let me know.
Okay, because I think it's just so wonderful to meet the kids too and see how they're doing. What do they tell you, Glenn? What do they say to you?
Well, first, they call me Mr. Glenn despite my request that they not.
I know, isn't it awful?
But they're very respectful. They are just very genuinely grateful. Their parents are very genuinely grateful, but the thing that turns me on the most is they tell me how they're considering their plan for paying it forward too.
So you have planted a seed. You have planted a seed.
I think it's true of all of them. They're smart enough to know that that's what I want, and they start thinking about how much fun it would be to be able to do that for someone else, because most of them are really good kids. Yeah. And all the ones we've selected are really good kids. Most of the kids at risk are really good kids.
I think so.
It's hard to be a really bad person when you're 16 years old.
I think it really is hard. You can do some bad things, but you're not a bad person yet.
Correct.
Glenn, I want to thank you for what you're doing as an attorney, but mostly for what you're doing as a citizen of our community. I really do appreciate it. And thanks for being with us
Well, I know
today.
you did the same things, and I appreciate that.
You know,
too.
our hearts are the same place.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much.
It's a pleasure.
It is indeed. We've been talking to Glen Armentor. We've been talking about the $10,000 paid forward scholarship. If you know of a youth who is at risk and who may benefit from going to college and changing his or her life and ultimately changing the world, this is a huge step and a way to do it. So get in touch with Glen's office and get an application. Thank you for watching The Extra Mile.